Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. We have a wonderful guest today who I have been fortunate to have interviewed before, Bob Doyle, star of the world-renowned Secret movie and book. Before I get started, I just want to make an official shout out to our show sponsors, Craig Shelley, Beverly Hills Luxury Watches and Fine Jewelry at craigshelley.com. We are streaming live on mspnewsglobal.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we're also on the E360 TV network under Fresh Takes, going out to Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and many, many more. So let's bring in our amazing guest, Bob Doyle. Bob, welcome to Brilliance Business TV.
Hi, Mark. Good to be here.
Bob, I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you today. I was such a huge fan of The Secret. I still am. You know, I've interviewed many of the original cast, including yourself a couple of times now. And even today, The Secret movie is still making moves. It's still getting noticed. I would just like to go back a little bit of your background that led you into the Secret movie and book project.
Sure. So before any of this work I was doing in personal development, my career aspirations were always in broadcasting. Wanted to do voiceover work, be on the radio, just be silly. I mean, my dad was in broadcasting and I watched that career and I said, oh, that's for me, just talking to a microphone and be a goof. I'm sign me up. So I started that career out of college, and I did radio for about 7 years total. And it ended up being not the creative outlet that I was looking for. And so, that was quite a wake up call to go my entire life knowing what I wanted to do, only to find out, oh, hey, maybe I don't want to do this after all. At least not how it was then. I just didn't have enough creative control to be able to get out of me what I wanted to get out in terms of expression. So that just kind of led to a whole lot of different career choices that I tried, computers and some network marketing and programming and different things, website design, just all kinds of things, trying to find the thing. And I was not having a lot of success doing it the traditional way. And that's what had me start to look down sort of the metaphysical avenues. Like, why isn't this working? This should all be working. I mean, I've got my degree. I know this experience. This should be working. Why isn't it? And that's what kind of led me down to discover meditation and visualization and the whole concept that you could create your reality, learning things about the energetic nature of the universe. Just all of those things came together to eventually lead to this aha I had around the law of attraction and how my thoughts had literally created my reality up to this point and what I needed to do to change it. And so I started utilizing some of the principles that, most people are familiar with in terms of the law of attraction, vision boards and visualization and all of those things. And my life began to change. And so as I was getting excited about it, I started to kind of put notes together and how can I help other people with this? And I created the Wealth Beyond Reason program, which was my first sort of law of attraction program and course. And it started out very small, but I made a crucial decision early on, and it ties right into what we're talking about today. And it had to do with who am I going to be in this conversation of teaching the law of attraction? Because there's a lot of people who want to get into the personal development industry. They want to help people. They want to become a speaker. They want to do a program. And this is their mindset that one day I'll be this, or I'll be as good as so-and-so, or I'll be as famous as, whatever. I made a decision that who I am right now is an effective communicator of these principles to as many willing, open minds as possible. When I made that declaration to myself, not that one day I'm going to be this, or I'm trying to be this, or I'm aspiring to be this, I am this now. That's when I really started getting all, what a lot of people refer to as the downloads, just a lot of aha moments. And I started creating a lot of content, and the program grew very rapidly. And so 3 years later, as Rhonda Byrne, who produced The Secret, was going through her own journey and was seeking out information about the law of attraction and how it works, she found me, she found my program, she decided she wanted that voice of just sort of, I'm just a everyday guy who learned this. I haven't been in the industry forever. I'm not a guru. I'm not a mystic. I'm just a guy who learned this. And I think she wanted that voice in there. And so that's how The Secret happened.
Firstly, that sounds like most entrepreneurship journeys, trying everything, things not working out, but then eventually the pieces start to fit together with experience. And you also mentioned visualization, meditation, which I still use today, which are really important. And like you mentioned as well, Bob, which is a really important point, focusing on today and doing what you can today. So I take that as being in the present moment, which is really, really important as well. So most people know all the principles of The Secret movie, Bob, and I would prefer to touch more on what you're really focused on today. So you're all about brain rewiring and neural plasticity. So firstly, could you explain what that is in a nutshell to people?
Yeah, neuroplasticity or neuroplasticity is just basically talking about our ability for our brain to change. And so because our brain has changed ever since we were born, we were born and it's just this open book. It's like, feed me information. And as we get information and input from the outside, our brain becomes wired with actual neural pathways, which shape the lens through which we see the world. All of our belief systems, everything we know is true, false, difficult, easy. I deserve it. I don't deserve it. All of this is coming in from the outside and getting right into our brain. And because of that, it forms our beliefs. And this is how we see the world. And the meaning we make out of every moment is based on our wiring. Two people can look at the exact same situation and have different meanings of it. We see it all the time. So truth is very plastic and very liquid and very subjective. And our brains can be, two different brains can look at the same thing and make different meaning. And the meaning that we give that moment is what is shaping our experience of reality. Every moment we're experiencing a moment and we're making it mean something. All these dots are connecting. So if we're not enjoying the moment, it's because of how our brain is processing the information. It's because of the meaning that we're giving this experience. And that meaning drives us into action or inaction, right? So if the results that we're getting in our life, if we look around in our life and we don't have enough money or we don't have the right relationship, or everything that is our experience is the result of who we've been being up to this point, which is all driven by the brain and the wiring. So if we want to change our external reality, which is why most people come to the law of attraction, we have to change ourselves. It starts right here, this machine that interprets everything. So the reason that I have moved from the law of attraction to this is because people spend so much time trying to figure out the law of attraction and use it to influence external circumstances rather than work on something they actually have control over, which is themselves. Because if you can control the external circumstances or whatever, you're still going to make certain meaning out of things. People can attract, you hear it all the time. People start with the law of attraction, they start to attract something, they get excited, and then something happens. It goes away, they sabotage themselves or whatever. So you can instigate the attraction process using all those techniques, but if you're not wired to receive it, you won't. And so my work now is about having the law of attraction in the background as subtext, because it will work automatically when you take on being the version of yourself that's going to get those results. So that's why science is very clear on neuroplasticity and our ability to change our brain. It's not debatable. Law of attraction, there's tons of debate. People spend years arguing points of it and not changing their lives. And so I've decided to move from that and actually help people get transformation in their lives rather than having them understand some concept.
I hear you, and I watch a lot of these documentaries all about the mind and neuroplasty consciousness, and the neurons in the brain, they form circuits together, and you have to get them to connect into new circuits, don't you, if you want to start creating different realities?
Absolutely. And that takes persistence. And this is what transformation is. If you actually take on any personal transformation and you have success with it, it is because you successfully changed your brain, which means that you gave it the right amount of information on an ongoing basis, fueled with emotion, all the things that need to happen to make these neural pathways fire. But most people, when left to their own devices with any personal development program, are up against themselves. They do it themselves. They buy a program online. They're excited about it. They start. But the moment they get to the limits of their current wiring, maybe, I don't deserve this, or I can't figure that, whatever it is, if they don't have support, if they don't have somebody to come in and help them see this through a different lens, they will quit. They will quit, and they will rationalize quitting, and they will feel right for quitting. And they will say, see, I told you this isn't going to work for me, because that is the truth that they're seeing based on their current wiring. We have to shake that up. And so transformation is anytime we're learning something new, there's some discomfort. When we learned to walk, when we learned to talk, there's tons of mistakes and feedback. But we didn't quit. We didn't say, I fell down learning to walk. I guess the universe doesn't want this for me, which is what a lot of law of attraction people say. They go for something, they get a result they don't want right away, and they go, I guess the universe doesn't want it, which is such nonsense. And those are the types of conversations I'm done with. Some of the law of attraction questions I get are so insane. And it just shows that people are just trying to either prove or disprove some sort of magic thing, rather than, hey, what do you want out of your life? Who do you need to be to do that? And what's the gap? So my work is about saying, here's where you are. This is what you've attracted or whatever. This is the result of who you've been being. You have a vision for something else. Let's talk about that. Let's get excited about that. What's possible when that happens? And let's look at, who do you need to be? What behavior are you having in the future that you don't have now? What stories have you let go of that you would have to let go of to have that kind of success? The person who has the success that you're envisioning does not use excuses, does not fall back, does not blame, does not talk about deserving issues, does not tell their same old sad story over and over again to justify why they can't have what they want. They have to get rid of all of that, stop telling that story. So literally, the neural pathways in the brain wither. And they're replaced with something else, more empowering, more inspiring, that's fueled with an emotion that you actually want to feel. And during that process, everything you're envisioning is going to feel wrong. It's going to feel like you're lying to yourself. It's going to feel completely unnatural. And that's another reason why people quit. But of course it feels that way. You're not wired for that yet. But with persistence, and that's where this visualization comes in. Visualization is not just some optional sort of thing you can play with. It's why we have our brain. We have this ability to imagine our future, to see it, to feel it, and then live into it. Because the more we visualize, the more we experience it as having it now. This is not magic. This is what most people think. If I just keep visualizing, I'm going to arrange these particles in the universe and the genie's going to appear. I'm going to have my thing. You're going, with that repeated visualization and getting into the feeling of it and seeing yourself being that, you're going to create new neural pathways. Biology is going to happen. And to the extent that you're ignoring the old ones, they will die. They will not serve a purpose anymore. And now you've got this. And the more you do it, when those neural pathways finally form, now you're being this, and you're looking back at how you are now. And you're going, how was I even that? Yes. How did I justify that?
Yes. And it takes taking action, changing habits, and taking on a lot of new rituals as well. And like you mentioned, it does feel uncomfortable. But again, another great point, when you look back at yourself, you do feel like a totally different person to who you were because of the new belief systems that you have in place. Bob, right. I've really enjoyed part one. We're just going to a commercial break, so do stay where you are. We've got lots to cover. Join us after the commercial break. We're joined with Bob Doyle. He has shared his journey of trying his entrepreneurship journey, finding it difficult to make all the pieces work and then make progress and end up in the world-renowned movie and book, The Secret. Today, he's focused on brain rewiring and neural plasticity. Join us after the commercial break. Welcome back to Brilliance Business TV. We're joined with Bob Doyle from The Secret Movie. Bob has been sharing all about how the brain works, how we can rewire our brain to create a new reality. And what he has been sharing today really does take the woo-woo out of the law of attraction and makes it all more achievable and real. Bob, the last year has been really, really difficult. Maybe a year and a half now. We have been in a global pandemic. Lots of businesses have gone bust. People have lost jobs. We've all been locked down. There are a lot of new entrepreneurs coming into the entrepreneurship space. What tips do you have for entrepreneurs to use brain rewiring and neuroplasticity to create success? Because they are going to need some real good skills with their mind to be able to move forwards with entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of people are, looking for, if they've been maybe historically in a career working for someone else, and now they're finding that maybe they want to look at entrepreneurship, having more control over their life. But it's a very specific brain type that is an entrepreneur, and as we touched on, it's quite an up and down journey, and you have to be ready for that and have the intestinal fortitude for that, because if you don't, then when you start getting that feedback that some people call failure, you're more likely to quit, because you don't have the brain that says, hey, you just do it until you're done. You just do it until it works. You don't quit. If you have the vision, you keep going, like Edison with the light bulb and 10,000 and all of it. Every major thing that is impacting our world in a significant way went through iterations. There was failure, but it's not failure, it's feedback. And you take that feedback and you adjust. So if you're starting from scratch as an entrepreneur, guess what? You're probably going to make some mistakes. You're going to get some feedback, but you are grateful for it. You're hacking away at learning. Instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars in a business school, you're out there in the real world. You're trying something. You're getting the feedback. You're making adjustments. You're trying something. You're getting the feedback. You're making adjustments, and you keep going. You keep going. What drives that ability to keep going is your vision. So here's the thing, that when you're creating a new entity like a business, you have to realize that, okay, for me to do this whole new thing, I'm going to need to be someone different. I'm going to be taking different actions. I'm going to be making different meaning. I'm going to be meeting different people. There's some growth that's going to occur. So I got to be ready for that. So who do I need to be to get those results? And so when I work with people, it's a process. You don't just willy-nilly do this, because you've got your whole life of wiring. It's going to take some consideration and some thought. Who do I need to be to get the results I want? And so you're identifying the gap between who you're being right now and what you're telling yourself, the stories you're telling yourself, the excuses you're telling yourself, how you're pointing outside and blaming this, that, and the other. And you have to be willing to get rid of all of it and say, who is the person who has the success? What do they feel? And you start embodying that. In other words, you create your vision from the future you, not from this you, because this you has limitations. This you has doubts. This you has worries. This you doesn't know a bunch of stuff. And that happens, that can get into your psyche. So you become the person who has succeeded. And just with that mindset shift, you don't have to know all the answers of the how, but how you need to be. So as you move through your entrepreneur journey and you get feedback, whether it's positive or negative, you want to respond to that feedback as the new you, not the old. So how do you know how to do that? Well, you prepare. So the way that I facilitate this transformation these days is I have something called the Boundless Living Challenge, which is a 45-day sort of immersion into these. And it's every day, throughout the day. They get stuff every day, because if you don't do it every day, if it's not on your mind constantly throughout the day, if you don't learn to get present in the moment of upset and make a different choice, you won't do it. You won't rewire. The approach that most people take to programs and personal development is, okay, I'll spend 30 to 60 minutes on it a day. That's not enough, because the other 23 hours a day, you're running your old program, solidifying that wiring, creating the same meaning, taking the same action, getting the same results. You have to shift the balance. So that means you start your day with looking ahead and saying, okay, what's ahead of me today? Who do I want to be in these situations? If you know you've got something coming up where normally you may have a disempowered response, maybe you freak out or, you don't like this person or you get triggered, you see this ahead of your, in your day, ahead in your imagination, you decide, when this happens, who do I want to be instead of how I normally am? What does the more empowered me do in this situation? Do I walk away? Do I just calm myself? Do I not get engaged emotionally? Like, what does the successful, happy, confident, empowered, abundant, loving version of me do in this situation where typically I go nuts or have an upset? So you run that ahead in the day, in your mind, in your imagination, over and over and over till you've embodied it, till you felt it. So now when you go out in the world and that situation happens, you're ready. It may not play exactly as you imagined it, obviously, but you're prepared to be that person. You may or may not succeed in the moment, and that's okay. But when you become aware, that's a win. Just becoming aware that, okay, I am now going into autopilot mode. I can choose. Am I going to go into upset like I always do? Or am I going to use this rehearsed response that I already know what it looks like, what it feels like? I may not know how they're going to respond to it, but I know how I'm going to be. And you can make that choice to be it. And the moment you make that new choice, you start creating new pathways. You create new neurotransmitters. You get different results. The moment you be different in the world must respond to you different. That's not magic. That's not woo-woo. That's not metaphysics. It's just plain old, I'm giving you something different to respond to now because I'm being different. So you're going to respond differently. Period. And that's how change happens. And that's how transformation happens. It's all super practical. It all happens right here. Now, that doesn't mean that all the law of attraction, vibration, attraction stuff isn't happening. It absolutely is. And it is happening based on who you're being and the energy you're putting out. But how you respond to what you attract is still going to be up to you in that moment. So that's why I'm saying, stop worrying so much about how you're attracting this and the vibe. And is this a sign? Is this a whatever? Because that's a distraction. And it's not getting you any further. Just know that when you are powerfully being who you're here to be, making that meaning, taking that action, having that impact out in the world, the law of attraction is just going to happen automatically because you're not running all this, oh, I don't know if I deserve it and all. That's the stuff that energetically pushes stuff away. But stop getting all caught up on that. I love release techniques like EFT and others that I institute into the program to help you get past those emotional sticking points so that the rewiring can happen faster. So there are a lot of sort of law of attraction techniques and tools that you will use in this rewiring process. But to get obsessed over the law of attraction aspect of it, why do you wear glasses if you know the law of attraction? This is a question I've gotten. I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you care about my glasses? What about your life? Who do you want to be? Stuff, but this is the kind of stuff I get every day through Instagram messages and all this other stuff. And I'm like, these people are living in a magical fantasy world and they're never going to transform if this is where their attention is. And so that's why I'm talking about what I'm talking about now.
Everything you are saying, it really just makes perfect sense. I know the beginning of my journey, I had no skills in social media entrepreneurship. I started in network marketing from being a mobile hairdresser, and I was getting lots of failure. So I totally agree. The only reason what kept me going through getting all no's and people not being interested, family, friends, people in your hot list, was having a big vision for my future and believing I could get there. And it's really, really important having a vision. I know the power of that. And I always say, you may have heard this before, Olympic gold medalists, they visualize winning the race day before the race. So on that day, they're in their mind, they have already won, because what you put in the mind, the brain takes it and believes it. So it's really important that we program it with really positive, empowering belief systems. You have a great show, the Bob Doyle Show. Tell us a little bit about this as well, Bob.
Well, the Bob Doyle Show has almost nothing to do with personal transformation or helping people or anything. It's simply, like I said at the beginning, I wanted to get into broadcasting because I just wanted to be a goofball and be creative and be silly and express that part of myself. which I rarely get to do in tech conversations like this sometimes, but not that much. So the Bob Doyle Show was because now technology affords us the ability to live stream and do shows and do all kinds of creative stuff. That's where I do it. That's where I express the other side of Bob Doyle that isn't so, about personal transformation necessarily, but about enjoying my life and hoping that the stuff I find silly or entertaining or whatever entertains you and that to bring a little smile or whatever. But it's an aspect of me that, like, if I don't do it, if I don't expect, because it's not money or anything like that, it's just so that I can express myself. But if I don't do that, I feel like a certain part of me is dying inside. And that's what happened after The Secret. When The Secret came out, I felt like, I need to be like Jack Canfield, or I need to be like Bob Proctor, or some of these other people who have been in the industry forever, because that's, in my mind, that's how I was being perceived. And I'd gotten some feedback from a couple of people, about positioning myself and how I should be and all of that, and kind of got in my head. And so for a couple of years, I was just kind of Bob Doyle from The Secret, and there really wasn't a lot of creativity being expressed or anything. I mean, maybe at home in private or on my computer, or I'm playing the ukulele or whatever, but not really sharing it. So once I started really sharing that aspect of myself, then I got more joy out of everything I was doing, because now I was feeling more of more holistic in my life. So it's one of those things with entrepreneurs, especially, I will say that entrepreneurs tend to focus all on their business, and that's it. And they get so blindsided that it becomes their life. They're like 17, 18, 20 hours a day. They don't take any time for themselves to have the fun and relax. And I think it's a mistake, because you're wiring yourself to insist that this is hard. It takes a lot of work. I can't do this. I can't be this. I don't have time for that. And you keep telling yourself every day, then it's going to become a belief system. And before you know it, you will have the time, you will have the bandwidth to do this creative stuff, but you won't do it because you're not wired to do it. You've wired yourself to say, in order to be successful, I worked 20 hours a day. So that's what I have to keep doing.
These are great points, actually, Bob, and very relevant for entrepreneurship and the business world. Before the pandemic, I used to just graft. But I've made a conscious decision since the pandemic. I take weekends to myself now. I've hired a personal trainer. I'm working on my fitness, working out 4 times a week. And these are things that I'm doing for me. And I feel when you do that and you gift yourself free time to look after yourself and well-being, I think you get better results because you're more focused and you're not just focusing on work, but as well you talked about expressing yourself, and I take that as following who you are and your passions, which is really important, because you made an important point. When you're in such a big project like The Secret, a part of that could take your identity a little bit, because you're always just the guy from The Secret. So it's great that you're really aware of that, and you were working on your own projects and really working on your own identity as well. So I want to know a little bit about personality types, because you offer the Transformation Personality Type quiz. So tell us a little bit about personality types and tell us more about the quiz, Bob.
So this is specifically transformation personality types. And I'm very open to say these are types that I made up based on 20 years of coaching people. So you're not going to find this in a book or whatever, but I think that when you hear me, you'll understand. So dealing with people who have taken on personal transformation, I've learned that, I mean, there are probably many more, but I've easily categorized them into 4 different categories of types of people who take on personal transformation. And these types, while there's nothing wrong with the types at all by themselves, there are traits within those types that tend to stop people before they're done, right? They get a certain amount, and then because of this trait that they have, they tend to sabotage themselves. They stop taking action. And so the rewiring process stops. And so the value of knowing your transformation personality type is that then you can recognize when your wiring kicks in. And that is the first step of all of this. If you're going to be intentional about transformation, you need to know what needs to transform. And it's generally going to be starting with your reactions, because that tells you how you're interpreting the world. So when you get into upset, if you can learn to immediately get present and become aware and to go into observation mode and to know that you have a different choice, that is a huge, huge skill set.
I'm just thinking as well, it takes knowing, like you say, Bob, because it's so easy to kick into old programming as well, especially when outside circumstances may push your buttons or someone says something that triggers you. So it's really, really important that we learn how to control our programming. And I really do feel brain rewiring is really, really important to create success. It's
absolutely essential. There is no transformation unless your brain changes. So just to wrap up the question about the quiz and the types. So when you know what your type is and you're out there in the world and you're aware of how that type operates, then you can see it in action, and that's a flag, and it says, oh, this is my wiring. This is my type in action. I'm about to go into autopilot mode. I know historically that this is where I stop. This is where I justify not moving forward. This is where I compromise my vision. This is where I listen to other people. This is where another program comes up and gets my attention and seems better, and so I'm going to divert. In that, when you recognize your type in action, then you have choices. But if you don't recognize it, it just seems like, oh, this is just how I operate, and this is obviously true, and I'm going to take this path, and you just go right back. So and it takes like a minute to take the quiz, but just having that information going, oh, I'm that type, that track. Yes, that is absolutely me. And so from that point on, you can't unknow that, which means that every time you get that response that you're going to tune in, remember the quiz. Oh, I'm at this. I'm in autopilot mode. What am I going to do with this right now? And your transformation success depends on what you do in that moment. Are you going to go to your automatic rewiring your automatic wiring and just have that reaction and justify it and get that little chemical burst about, yeah, I'm right about this, meh. Or am I going to make a more empowering change? Now, here's the trick. You are flooded with chemicals in the moment of upset. Your body is completely taken over by chemicals. So even though you are aware that you can make a different choice, it is not easy, because your body is biologically in momentum to have this upset. That's why you need support. That's why it's almost impossible to take on this kind of intentional transformation just by yourself, because you've got your own wiring, your own rationalizations, your own personality types. You need to borrow somebody else's lens. You need to borrow somebody else's strength. You need ultimate accountability. You need every single day to be reminded of this so that the wiring actually takes place. If you do this for a couple of days and then take a few days off, guess what? Right? The wiring the chemicals recede. You go right back to the other thing. So transformation is a commitment, and it's a commitment that most people don't make fully. They start it. They get excited about it. They see the secret. They get a vision board. They do their thing, and then it doesn't work or whatever. It's slow, or they don't like the results, and then they just bail and they go on to the next thing, or they give up on themselves. But that's not how they walked. That's not how they talked. That's not how they learned anything. They just kept going until they got it. They didn't think about the universe not wanting it for them. They didn't think about any of that stuff. Not doing it was not an option. And that's what transformation needs to be for you. Your goal needs to be non-negotiable. And until it is, you're probably going to let yourself off the hook.
I agree totally. And it's a lifelong journey, personal development and self-improvement. And like you mentioned, you don't just do it for a couple of days. All the successful people I know, they work on themselves consistently. They're always improving. They have huge visions, and you have a goal, but eventually that goal ends up being another goal and moving. So it's always an ongoing journey. And like you mentioned, you can't do it alone. It's much easier with a mentor, someone that can support you, who is experienced. I would encourage everyone to take the Transformation Personality Type Quiz at tptquiz.com. Bob, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. I love everything what you're doing in this world. Like I mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of The Secret, and I really, really love how you're taking the woohoo out of law of attraction and making it so much more understandable and open to everybody and more actionable, so that people really can take steps to move forwards in business and in life. My last question for you, Bob. Can you share a word of wisdom to close the show of any entrepreneurs that are struggling out there? Just a few words of wisdom for them to create their whole new reality.
I think I have one directive before I really start getting into the work with people. They just need to know that the brain can change. That's really bottom line. Like, I don't spend months teaching people the ins and outs of all the regions of the brain and neuroplasticity, because that's just getting them back into figuring out all the minutiae again, just like law of attraction. It's enough to know that your brain can change. And if you don't believe me, look at yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You have changed, and it happened unintentionally, maybe. A lot of times we evolve because of our circumstances. So just think what can happen if you get intentional about it. If you decide what goes in there, you decide what it means. You decide how frequently you have these thoughts, how quickly your brain can change. You get to decide how emotionally inspired you are by your own vision. You decide it all. People spend their whole lives trying to figure out who they're going to be, who are they supposed to be, what's my purpose, who am I? You get to decide. Stop wasting time trying to wait for a sign. You decide. What's calling in your heart? Who do you want to be? Is there somebody that inspires you? Somebody that moves you into, yes, I'd like to have the same impact as them. You can start to model them and then work your own personality into it. Just know this can happen, but it takes, and it's all scientific. There's no weird woo-woo technique. It's just different information in. So the word of wisdom is just know that change is absolutely possible for you. If you're not happy with where you are and you cannot create a vision for yourself that's bigger, please just get help. Somebody can help you through this. And it's totally normal that your vision is what it is. If you've got a block, it's okay. It's just normal. It's your wiring. It's not your fault because it happened unconsciously. Now, though, you know what you know. From this moment on, you know that your reactions are autopilot and wired, and you learn them. And if you don't like them, you get to change them, even though it may not feel easy to. So ultimately, it's about your responsibility. How committed to you are your vision? So if there's one thing to take, make sure that your vision, business and otherwise, inspires the hell out of you.
Bob, I have thoroughly enjoyed having a conversation with you today. Thank you for being on the Brilliance Business TV show.
My pleasure.
You have been watching Brilliance Business TV. We have been joined today with Bob Doyle from The Secret movie. Bob started off as a struggling entrepreneur, not knowing where to start, not getting the results he wanted, and eventually putting all the pieces together, what led him into The Secret movie and book. Today, Bob helps with transformation, brain rewiring using neuroplasticity. I have really enjoyed today. Thank you everyone for watching Brilliance Business TV. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.